Your body produces two directions of light, positive and negative, and tachyon is one of the forces that the ancients, under the direction of the Most High, govern. It is a glue-like substance which holds particles of light together, making them appear as a beam of light, which makes it appear solid, though it is actually particles moving at 186,272 miles per second. Tachyon makes the energy in motion appear solid as you appear solid, though with a strong enough lens we can see straight through the physical body. Now, let us get all members of humanity to realize that who is the masculine creative force of will, which as an entity or force dwells outside of this time zone. As such, in order for life to exist there was the masculine force or current who, coming from and produced by the universe. This force is today called centripetal. In this same manner its feminine counterpart is called he. He is the feminine concept of the creative force or source of will, which mundane scientists call the centrifugal force, which is produced by and from the Earth and all planets. As such, it is these two forces that all life, motion etc., depends on in order to exist. Now, what is also important for all of you as members of humanity to realize is that these principles exist in many ways under various names within all cultures and fields of study, whether it is called yin-yang by those of the Orient, shen-sham by those of Aksum, ancient Ethiopia or Kush, male-female by doctors, up-down by NASA, in-out, to-fro or positive-negative, regardless of the name it is called. It's all the same principle that states that these two currents or forces are necessary for movement or life to occur. Even further, let us stress that when we say positive and negative we don't mean it in the religious sense of the word, but instead in the sense of current or polarity. In order to understand what we mean, just imagine if you went to start your car and there was no negative battery post connection, or no positive battery post connection. Could you start your car? No. Thus, you must accept that both of these are necessary, as they exist in all electrical components of which the human body and universe are some. The Book of the Living Soul, 7:1-240-248, the plane of force is a plane largely composed of energy forces, and the etheric ka, duplicates of the physical plane's objects. The plane of force is not subject to the law of gravitation as you understand it. The plane of force is dominated by the law of attraction. Upon the plane of force there is neither distance nor time. There is no heat or cold, summer or winter, day or shadow hour. It is a plane of aspiring desires, as well as carnal. The guardians of Tamari, ancient Africa, taught that there must be a necessary balancement in all things, thus Ma'at, order, exists between each attribute, element, and the guardian angelic hosts who uncovered, manifested and embodied their principles. All of this comes from a Tamaraean, ancient African, scientific precept, which deals with the use of the base elements that we call the law of triads. This Tamaraean law notes that many elements come in groups or compounds of three, thereby are triads in which the weight of the middle element or guardian angelic being or attribute, was and is the average weight of the lighter and heavier members of their respective triad. An example of a triad type of compound is hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen, which together form or make what humanity refers to as grass. Furthermore, amongst the terrestrial guardian angelic hosts, who did actually reside on the African continent, there was a triad in each state, SABAT or nome, which all come from the original triad, where the position of Atun Ray, the middle, was the holder of the point of average, or balancement between point Atum Ray and point Amun Ray, simply the scales of Ma'at. There were 10 triads amongst the elements, 3 tetrads, groups of 4, and a pentad, 5, consisting of nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony and bismuth. All of these are what today is referred to as compounds. The triads, tetrads and pentad were all governed by the NWPU, who control regular increases in the relative weight of each of these respective compounds. The triads increase their relative weight, each element combines to form a compound, and thus their atomic weights merges or is altered, increasing their weight. These are realities the Caucasus education system intentionally keeps confusing to the average Nagaru. Our Tamaraean ancestors would personify these realities through pictographs, stories and analogies to keep the mind engaged, as opposed to subjecting the initiate or student to the sleep-inducing droning of a pompous, underpaid lecturer or professor. A certain level of information requires a certain level of charge or energy from the organ we call the brain. When the student has to process information above their level of comprehension, it requires much energy to grow the physical neurons that form permanent memories. Thus, in modern educational settings, many children suffer from boredom in the classroom, which leads to restlessness and irritation, thus disruptive students who slow the learning of their peers. The forming of new neurons also requires nutrients from the body. A bad diet means the student will tire quickly, as if they were engaging in strenuous physical activity. Therefore the brain is sometimes referred to as a muscle, because learning higher concepts can be just as physically taxing as exercise. Again, it must be stressed, The Caucasus education system is designed to produce a specific type of graduate. This reality is no excuse to miss out on an education. Go to class, sit down, shut up and learn as much as possible. No need to be a distraction, but the modern Nagaru must also supplement their learning, as well as that of their children. In the deep reptilian-controlled subterranean world, knowledge is limited to levels of awareness, and there is always a price to pay to get to the next level of awareness. There is no such thing as a free lunch, not on this planet anyway. If you want the knowledge, there is going to be a certain price you will have to pay, and most are unwilling to pay that price. The reason why so many Nagaru are hopelessly confused about this whole mess is because social triggers have been programmed into them, through cultural norms, to keep them from getting at the truth of their experiences. Falling asleep is just one trigger mechanism. Likewise, an overwhelming compulsion to get up and walk out, to get up and eat, to get up and smoke a cigarette, getting nauseous, a headache, etc. There are Nagaru who are absolutely incapable of finishing an actual fact book, or listening to a lecture by Dr. Henrik Clark, but can rip through comics, graphic novels and horror books in a matter of hours. Many Nagaru listen to their spirit guides, pastors, and astrologists, who consistently detract them away from knowledge of self-based research information that will probably trigger them into a rage or panic attack. Why do you think that is? Could it be that the self-same spirit guides are the perpetrators themselves? In the battleground commonly referred to as the Black or African diaspora, this knee-jerk hostility immediately manifests itself amongst programmed and manipulated religious folk. Whenever painful historical realities, or current social and behavioral disorders are mentioned by Sabian adepts, they are regarded as spiritually retarded fear-mongers. Furthermore, those who bring these topics up are sometimes accused of being some kind of spiritually unevolved disinformation artist. For all the conspiracy theories and talk of a Big Brother dystopia, the cold hard truth is that most Nagaru researchers and organizations aren't even worth spying on. To the gullible and manipulated, everyone seems to be a government agent. If that were true, there would be no one left to spy on. The painful truth is, some of these organizations and researchers are having their phones tapped and mail hacked because there is no one else around in their region worth instilling paranoia on. The New Age Nagaru organizations consistently use a melange of metaphysical spiritual platitudes about the challenges Nagaru face in the modern world, and oftentimes become irate and livid during these exchanges with those who are more mature and sensible than they are about the subject. And all of the vindictiveness and hollering by these Abrahamic pagan idolaters is done in the name of love and light, of course. Other programmed behaviors are promiscuity, self-destructive behaviors such as substance abuse, self-destructive relationships. Many female Nagaru have had at least one and usually more controlling, domineering and abusive men on their lives for extended periods of time. It never occurred to them that these abusers were themselves being manipulated, and the list goes on and on. Some of these Nagar so-called UFO researchers out there are still running around, staying up all night atop a wind-swept plateau hoping a UFO flyby. Grow up. It is not an alien phenomenon per se, it is a Nagar phenomenon, because it's happening to Nagaru. If you are going to take part in this great drama, do not allow the aliens to activate your ego. It is the simplest thing. A few meaningless telepathic transmissions, a few UFO flybys, a few meaningful synchronicities, and egos are activated. The numerous New Age, Pleiadian, light worshipper YouTube channels are proof in themselves. These types of manifestations are parlor tricks. Sabians are not interested in parlor tricks. The same exact thing happens to budding Wiccans and witches. The very first spell or incantation works and they think they were responsible for it, when it was actually a familiar spirit who was manipulating them. How much dreadlocks, tarot cards and tofu miracle foods are we expected to put up with, and still take seriously? How does this superstitious spuriousness help develop Nagar communities? How has dancing and falling about in the church, hoping for miracles, helped further Nagaru survival in the West? And yes, Sabians do bear witness to the reality of miracles and miracle foods, in respect to the fact that mir means pyramid, meaning central fire, and miracle means pyramid science, emphasis on the word science. There has to be a factual, scientific basis to all cultural practices throughout Nagar communities. For example, a miraculous healing food is honey, which also is a compound, composed of 14 sugars and 11 minerals. Honey is also an antibiotic. This is due to the fact that honey has within it an enzyme called inhibin, which is secreted by the pharyngeal glands in the throat, of bees. Honey is effective against staphylococcus, skin and internal disorders such as boils, abscesses, styes, and urinary tract infections, salmonella, bacterial food poisoning, and candida, thrush bacteria. Honey has also been used to treat surgical wounds, ulcers and burns. Honey is a source of miracles because it contains high levels of electricity, which is generated by the bees, which are able to fly off of the magnetic currents in the Earth's environment. We know that the bee is actually flying using the electricity which is within the atmosphere because of the way it moves through the air, changing directions at an instant and hovering at will. Their wingspan compared to their size is much too small to be able to hold their body weight, if they were flying the way birds fly. The bee flies in much the same way as most crafts, such as those mentioned in the book of Ezekiel. The Book of the Wanderers, 6:4-27-29, honey is an overlooked miraculous food created by the Most High Heavenly One, and nay ray for mortals, a popular medicine and the principal part of ointments and plasters. An antibacterial, fermenting at 60 degrees and absorbs moisture when stored at 60% relative humidity. Composed of highly concentrated H2O solution of 2 sugars. 1. Dextrose, and 2. Levulose. A carbohydrate, high energy source. Other sugars are isomaltose, furanose, maltose, nigerose, cogibiose, lucrose, melaxetose, erluza, kestose, and raffinose. Honey contains 11 minerals: potassium, chlorine, sulfur, calcium, sodium, phosphorus, magnesium, silica, iron, manganese, and copper. This is the root of Sabian culture, which is facts, science. This is at the root of your Tamarayan, ancient African culture called animism. This is how modern Nagaru will balance the scales of Ma'at and raise Nagar youth to lead us to our desired future. The education student teachers of Wu-Sabat bring forth, are as the spoken word or the act of speaking or calling things to come into existence, that Father Ptah uses to create, manifest and grow into tangible creations, which is why it is said that actions speak louder than words. The creative utterance, word, tone, pulsation, sound, thunder, or vibration of Ptah was called Hu, also Hu Hi or Uwa, in Egypt. There are many similarities between the Nubian triad of Ptah, creator, Sekhmet, destroyer, and Nefertum, completer, to the Hindu triad of Braham, creator, Shiva, destroyer, and Vishnu, preserver. The Hindu creator deity Braham, whose name means to grow, which is the same thing as to create, Ptah, is also associated to a bull known as the Brahma bull. The creative tone that the Hindu deity Braham uses to create is called Om or Om. Examining the geometric construction of the symbol for the African Nubian tone of creation uttered by Ptah, Hu, and the Indian Hindu tone of creation spoken by Braham, Om, shows striking similarities. A similar symbol is used in the logo of the electrical company called GE, General Electric. Nefertum, Ptah's son by his wife Sekhmet, was a younger version of the Egyptian city of Heliopolis' main creation deity named Atum, also called Tum, meaning the complete or finished one. Ptah was also considered the father of the lion-headed deity of war, weather, and weapons named Mahis. The mother of Mahis was Ptah's other wife named Bast. Mahis was called the Lion Prince, or Lion King called Sundiata or Sunjata in the Malian Empire, and was depicted carrying a knife, sword, or saber. Mahis was also associated with the lion-headed warrior deity Apdemak, who was worshipped in Nubia, Sudan by the Beja warrior archers called the Medjay. What the modern Nagaru are involved with today is spiritual warfare. Everything has to first manifest in the unseen realms before they manifest in the visual spectrum, in the spiritual before it manifests in the physical. Look around you. The symbology of the reptilian overlordship is all around. The thought form of reptilians in the mass media is constantly hammering you. Crude and vulgar behaviors are being presented to you in the mass media and the so-called entertainment industry, as if crude and vulgar behavior is the norm. The boorish, crude and unprofessional behavior of the US president and his followers. The baseness and vulgarity which is being promoted, is symptomatic of a reptilian-influenced society. People are so used to the lies, that if they heard the truth, they would probably have an allergic reaction to it. The Caucasus reptilian overlords strive to activate that pale serpent seed which is programmed within all of us. The struggle is within. The opposing polarities of good and evil are striving to promote certain attributes and behaviors within us. One side wants to corrupt us from within, the other wants us to break out of this spiritual prison. Ultimately it comes down to your own individual choice. Nagaru should hesitate to use the term free will, because we know that we all have been manipulated and programmed, and have first-hand experience of the constant struggle to overcome all of these hang-ups, but that's what will make the ultimate victory that much greater. We have the indomitability of the Nagar spirit and soul. The only peoples of the earth able to evolve to the rank of Solar Sapien. It is in our destiny to achieve nobility as a race. If we had just been left alone, we would have reached that level of greatness already, but alas, that hasn't been the case. The academic community is not qualified to tell Nagaru anything about our ancient African Tamarayan culture, and would not if they were. Their job is to produce graduates that magnify the greatness of Caucasus society and culture. That's just common sense. It's these same Caucasus and Arabu who forced on us the distortions as to the identity of God, which only got worse through misinterpretations, acquired by mistranslations from one language to another. So, this person has this or that translation because they want to make this or that point of view stand out. Another person feels a part of the Bible is saying this or that, and thus makes a separate sect of religion from what already is a sect from the original religion. So, additions and innovations were added and religion was corrupted. Originally the Caucasus reptilian overlords, who are malevolent in nature, interfered with our original way of life. Many cultures have branched out from Tamarayan sciences. These draconians are the ones responsible for scriptures, commentaries and interpretations, which led to the Talmud and the Mishnah, and other false texts. It is these codes of law that led to racism, war and death. Their culture is designed to separate and foster competitiveness amongst us. You were told this in the book of Genesis, twice. First in Genesis 3:15, where their God, Enlil, placed enmity between the woman's seed and the serpent's seed, signifying conflict. Secondly, in Genesis 11. Enlil feared Nagaru contacting the Netaru and uniting. He confused their languages, causing them to scatter and speak in different tongues. It is pre-encoded into Caucasus culture to cause separation and sectism. Taking what was once whole and breaking it into pieces, factions, fractions, destruction. As Oppenheimer, an American-born German Jew once said, quoting the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." An atomic explosion is caused by splitting the atom. The Caucasus and Arabu invaded our motherland and carved it to the borders we have today. They did the same to the Americas. The Caucasus Aryan did the same to India, instilling the caste system on the original dark-skinned Dravidians. Same thing happened to the Nagar Tarites called Pygmy today, who settled in what's called China. They were attacked, raped, and mixed pale-skinned. The exact same story is told by the Ano people of Japan and natives of Australia, not to mention the Nagar civilizations that made up the Fertile Crescent. Even a rudimentary study of the Punic Wars would give an insight into the ghostification of Nagaru in Europe. Baba Yanun used to say, "The first time is an incident, second time is a coincidence, the third time is a law of nature." And that is the nature of Caucasus, to infect, like a germ, man of germs, German, Oppenheimer, the destroyer of worlds.